Hey, comic book fans, Pete here with my good friend Brian, Mr. Core's hair. It feels like a lifetime since the last time I saw you.
Yeah, I dragged my heels immensely on finishing Paper Girls, unfortunately. So it just took me forever to finish it.
Yeah, well, it's kind of tough doing these reviews and stuff when you have kids and you have, a job and everything like that. When you try to cram in 8 episodes of a show, it's like, where do you fit it in?
Yeah, it also didn't help that I joined on your Predator call on the Lastercast.
Oh, yes.
And I watched like 4 Predator movies.
Oh, my God. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's awesome, man. I think Danny's rubbing off on you because you just did a little plug for the Lastercast. We just covered Prey over there. Brian came over to that channel. But for today, Brian and I are covering the very first episode of She-Hulk, Attorney at Law, the 8th MCU show. And then we are going to cover the remaining 4 episodes of Paper Girls, 5 through 8, which we didn't cover last time. So I am excited right off the bat. I think that She-Hulk do you think it's maybe the most controversial of the MCU shows so far?
I only watched the episode about maybe an hour and a half ago, so I haven't read any controversy yet.
Okay. I think that just like leading up to it, there's been like so much backlash already.
I remember reading rumors that when is the MCU TV train gonna fail like horribly, and then said, one of these next upcoming shows is gonna be rough, and a lot of people said it was She-Hulk.
Yeah,
there was a lot of discussion about the CGI when that first trailer dropped. I personally think it has improved since then, but we'll discuss all this.
Yeah. So one thing we should point out, in case you guys can't tell, we are middle-aged men, and and we love comic books. And it just seems like a lot of middle-aged men get really bent out of shape about these like female-focused comic book shows. And they were already mad to begin with because the show had a female showrunner, which a couple of these MCU shows already have. But this is Jessica Gao. Do you know anything about her prior to the show?
I read what you wrote about it, thankfully, but I did recognize that name. I knew it from somewhere, and I think it's probably mostly from Rick and Morty.
Yeah.
It's actually, I believe she were part of season 3. You mentioned. I think that's one of the more controversial seasons, I believe.
Yeah,
and I think it's because they had a lot of women in the writers' room in that season.
Yes,
I think a lot of the fans didn't take well to that, which I do like season 3. I maybe do think Pickle Rick is a little overrated because I think people went a little too nuts with that, but it's still a good episode overall.
Yes. Honestly, I feel the exact same way about that episode too, and I like pretty much all the seasons of Rick and Morty as well. But it's just this thing that whenever you come on YouTube, whenever you go on Twitter, pretty much Twitter, you're kind of in your own echo chamber, right? And so you're just seeing what people that think like you think, but they often will take the complaints and stuff that people have about shows like this, and they'll be like, look at these guys and what they're saying. And I think that just like the criticism, I think they just automatically have it. It's just like a knee-jerk reaction. Like, oh, it's a female character. Oh, it's about women. It's like, I'm going to be upset. And the thing is, I don't want to just discredit any kind of criticism because I want to be the opposite of those guys. I do kind of want to criticize this show because honestly, I wasn't very impressed with this first episode. What about you, my man?
I have the exact opposite opinion.
Oh, shit.
I actually love this episode. I am very happy with it so far. And I actually said the sentence, I felt this episode came out of the gate swinging.
Whoa. Okay.
This has happened a lot more lately that we're like totally disagreeing, have opposite opinions on things lately.
Yeah. Honestly, sometimes I always wonder, I'm like, oh, am I just being like real, like PC and real, like I'm just watching what I'm saying because I want to be as like broad as possible. I don't like, I'm absolutely not misogynistic, and I don't have any of these kind of like, oh, comics should be for men kind of bullshit like that. But I do kind of feel like there are certain trends I'm getting a little worried about. Like with this show, for example, let's just get right into the fucking controversy right off the bat. Like, so spoilers for She-Hulk, the first episode. I have heard criticisms where it's like you take a legacy character that made the franchise what it is, and then you bring in a new character that's a female character and or a diverse character, and essentially they like outdo the original character. The original character has faults and stuff, and the new character is like they're superior, and it's like like Rey in Star Wars, for instance. Like one of the things is that they say that, like, Rey is this amazing character. She's super skilled. She can do all these different things. And then like Luke, we have to like tarnish Luke's legacy, and then it makes Rey look better, right? And I think that something like that's kind of happening in this episode. I think that like the Hulk has he started out very scary in the MCU, and now he's kind of become a joke by this point. But it has nothing to do with She-Hulk. Go ahead.
I wouldn't say the Hulk has become a joke, but he's definitely leaned more into being a comedic character.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that like Thor Ragnarok really shook things up for the MCU in general. Like, I think that like Thor became much more of a comedic character, and I think the Hulk became much more of a comedic character.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. But like, do you agree with me in the sense that when we first met him, it was this idea of like, oh my God, he's like a fucking bomb, and we got to be like, we're scared of him because if we trigger Bruce Banner, he could kill a whole bunch of people.
Yeah, that is very true, but there was a movie dedicated to that. That was like that in two Avengers movies.
Right.
And to an extent, was it like that in Thor as well? Thor Ragnarok. I mean, he became more comedic, but he was still he was Hulk for 2+ years or something like that. I guess at this point here, we're seeing all we've seen more recently since Endgame is the Smart Hulk version. Mm-hmm. And I think it is something different. It is something involved for the character. It's something, that happened in the comics, Professor Hulk.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not people's favorite type. I mean, I do agree. I always did like Hulk, that, the whole Jekyll and Hyde anger trigger kind of thing. It's always it's kind of cool,
Yeah.
A monster inside a man, all that. But
mm-hmm.
You know what? I don't have a problem with Smart Hulk. I actually really don't like Mark Ruffalo very much.
Oh, really?
I don't think he's a very great actor or anything like that. He's fine. He's totally serviceable. Not like a huge fan or anything like that.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't like see him, like if he was in a movie, I'm like, oh, I want to go see this Mark Ruffalo movie,
Right,
Which
right.
I would say about a lot of the other people that have played Avengers and things like that. Like I would say that.
Interesting.
And I don't want to like make it seem like I hate Mark Ruffalo or but I'm not a huge fan.
Okay.
I did like him in this episode. I mean, I think the comedy worked here. I think the back and forth between Hulk and Jen worked really well. I think Tatiana Maslany is fantastic, absolutely fantastic so far. And I can tell that you're going to say the opposite or something different.
Okay. So, unlike your feelings for Mark Ruffalo, I like Mark Ruffalo, absolutely. And I think that maybe, have you seen like a lot of his just like dramatic movies where he's not an Avenger or anything like that?
I've seen some things. I would say I'm not going to say I've seen all his movies. I guess prior to the Avengers, I guess he was, probably most known for like rom-coms.
Sorta, yeah. Well,
I don't know if I've seen a dramatic movie though with him in it necessarily.
Yeah. Like he's in Collateral, and he's almost like unrecognizable in that movie. And then he's in that movie Spotlight. That was like with Michael. Yeah. I think that won like Best Picture. Like he's in a lot of these like indie movies, and when he's like serious, he's really good. He was in that movie Foxcatcher with Steve Carell. We had like the fake nose. It was But anyway,
okay, yeah.
I think
Steve Carell is another guy. I don't really like that much either.
Yeah, Steve Carell picks some weird movies, but I like him though. But anyway, Tatiana Maslany, I've only seen her in like maybe one or two things. I haven't seen much of Orphan Black, but I have seen Perry Mason, and she was in that. I thought she was really good in the HBO Perry Mason, right? Okay. And so, like, I know that she is a good actress, and I think that, like, with Orphan Black, she played like all different characters on that one show. I think though that what she's working with is a detriment to her. I think that like the script itself, it just kind of feels like it's like I don't know. I just feel like it just needs like another pass or something like that. Like they just need to kind of tighten a few things, or like I would make some changes because I felt like they were going for like low hanging fruit with some of the stuff. And I think that like one example I can kind of give is the scene that starts off the show where they're driving in the car. I mean, that's not the very first scene, but like when they do the flashback, like, and they're talking about Steve Rogers as a virgin. And to me, it's like, okay, so the joke is that Steve Rogers is a virgin. The way that it's delivered, it's not really like a joke, really. It's just they're sort of talking about something kind of controversial because they're talking about Captain America's sexuality, but it's so like vanilla to begin with the way they're talking about it. It's like, who cares? Why are you obsessed with Captain America's virginity?
I can kind of see this from an angle where I actually did like the joke. I thought it was funny. I thought the end credit was funny. I know you disagree with that. I can kind of see this from an angle where it's like, oh, don't make fun of somebody being a virgin, whatever. I totally see that. But on the other hand, it's like a little logic puzzle. It's a famous person. People are obsessed with celebrities in this world. Superheroes are celebrities, probably even higher level than celebrities. People want to speculate, they want to gossip about it. I get it. It's a little low hanging fruit, I suppose. Yes, I did think it was funny. I think Chris Evans thought it was funny. He responded. He posted on Twitter with a bunch of emojis and with hashtag She-Hulk. So, I think if Chris Evans is cool with it, I think everybody should be cool with it.
Well, I do like Chris Evans. I like his presence on Twitter. That's for sure. Okay, so like, all right, so you like the joke, that's fine. But then like the other thing I feel is like low hanging fruit is that pretty much like every man on the show is bad. Like the Hulk, he kind of gets a pass, but even the Hulk is kind of like a buffoon, But we'll go into that in a couple of minutes. But the men that we see on the show is there's another lawyer at Jennifer Walters' law firm in the very beginning, and he's like condescending as hell to her. Then after she's in that car accident, she goes into a bathroom and there's all these women that like help kind of get her cleaned up and stuff. And they put makeup on her and they give her a coat. They're all very giving and caring. And then she goes outside and like men immediately begin hitting on her. And it's just like, I that's one other trend. Like I was talking about trends before. I don't like the trend where it's like, well, we're going to make all men look bad and make all women look good. Of absolutely 1,000% women are harassed by men constantly. It's totally unfair. It's biased. However, there's good men too, right? And like, I don't ever act like that towards women, and like, I don't know. That just bothered me that all the men in the episode seemed pretty flawed.
Where I'm gonna attack this from a way I'm hoping you're not gonna expect here. Those characters, quote unquote, were on the screen for maybe 30 seconds.
Right.
I wouldn't consider them characters in this episode necessarily. They are maybe the lawyer guy. He may show up again at some point. He'll have some more lines, but other than that, I would say that this show had 3 characters in it. It had her friend, and then She-Hulk, and then Hulk. That was I guess Titania too. Okay, there's 4 characters.
Yeah.
I think that while what you said could possibly be true, but I think that one episode is way too early to call it, and there's way too little of those in those examples to make a judgment call on that so far.
That's actually a really good point. I mean, they're almost like not even like characters; they're just like plot devices, right?
Yeah,
it's just like. Like you have to trigger her anger, but it's like couldn't a woman have angered her, or like couldn't a man have helped her? It's just I get it. I get what you're saying. Well, I mean, we'll see as the show progresses, obviously.
Yeah.
But so then I did want to talk about Hulk himself, and I was going to ask you, just going back to what we were talking about before, is there a particular version of the Hulk that you like the best?
Oh, it's Immortal Hulk, absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, I don't watch anywhere near as much horror or know anywhere near as much as you do. But the whole body horror angle they took with that, to me, is just like amazing.
Yeah.
I also would do kind of like the classic Hulk version. I definitely would not say that Professor Hulk is up there in any capacity.
Right.
but I don't mind it in this scenario. It's something different. Characters do have to change. It is something that he went through in the comics. I'm cool with that. I'm assuming we're never going to see a Joe Fixit here. But I wouldn't be surprised if he does go back to a little more rage monstery sometime in the future.
Yeah. Well, I absolutely love Immortal Hulk too. I love that Al Ewing comic so much. Like, I think that, Hulk works best when he's like a scary monster. And, I always say, like, I never think of Hulk as one of my favorite Marvel characters. I don't think of him in my top 10. And yet I've read so many Hulk comics. Like, I think I've read like every Hulk comic that's come out like the past 20 years or so or more. And I guess I like him. I just don't even realize it. And this Mark Ruffalo version, I always wonder like why they went that route in Endgame, like why they made him be this professor character in the first place.
I think they were just playing off of the well, there's two reasons actually that I think explains it. One, they're playing off of the established bond, Science Bros bond that he has with Tony, which was needed because a lot of the other science-based characters are blipped. And two, they needed to explain what happened, and they needed him to have a brain, and because they needed to counteract what happened with Thor, or rather where he was Hulk for 2 years.
I see. Okay. All right. I'll accept that. I like that. Well, I think like with the Mortal Hulk, like I was thinking about this too. I had to consult my notes, but I think with She-Hulk's actual like transformation, the idea is that like he has this like radioactive blood because he's the Hulk, and like if he was to bleed on anybody, they would turn into a monster. Do you think that that's the case?
I don't agree. I think they said otherwise here. I think they said that if he bled on somebody, they would probably die of in some horrible fashion, and it's only because of some weird combination of their family genetics that they're able to process the gamma.
Okay, right. That's the whole idea, is that like their family has this special thing that can process the gamma radiation. So you think that if someone got it, they would most likely die,
or something less photogenic would happen.
Right. That's what I was thinking. Because like when you go all the way back to the Incredible Hulk, which I think came out in like 2008.
Yes.
That, with Edward Norton. There's two scenes. Like the Abomination is basically because they have Hulk's blood, they're able to make Tim Roth into Abomination, and then the guy that becomes the leader, they spill some like blood samples onto his head, and then his head starts bubbling to become the leader.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that might be the closest the MCU will ever get to like an Immortal Hulk, is the idea of like Bruce's blood could like mutate people. But don't you think that by Bruce and Jennifer having this ability to sort of process the gamma, it kind of makes them special? And do you think that almost might suggest that they're mutants too?
Yeah, after Ms. Marvel, yes. And I don't like that at all.
Right. Oh, no way. I do not like that either.
Keep my mutants as my mutants.
Yes. Thank you, Gus. Okay, I'm glad we're on the same page, at least for that.
Kevin Feige, don't mess up X-Men, please.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah. Please don't make everyone a mutant. Like, don't make everyone that has a power.
Don't make everyone's not a mutant. Just stick with the mutants. Totally cool if you want to go with Laura over Logan, whatever. But give me just X-Men characters, existing X-Men characters.
Exactly. So, I was going to say that like. They reference Sakaar too, right? Because they have the ship that comes down. Do you think that might be like they're setting up something for like later down the road?
Yeah. So I mean, this is one of the things here is that Hulk is one of the longest standing characters left around in the MCU.
Yeah.
I think that they've kind of set up a lot of Endgame especially too. A lot of kind of like sunset movies. You could say Hawkeye was kind of like a sunset for Clint. I think that they're going to have to do something with Bruce to kind of send him off, because I don't think he's going to want to stick around forever.
Yeah.
And the only thing I can think of, because they kind of did Planet Hulk mixed with Ragnarok.
Right.
So I think it's got to be something with World War Hulk.
Okay. Whoa.
But I also think that if it's Sakaar there, it's involved, maybe it has something to do with Scar.
Yeah, like he has a son, right?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
I don't know
Yeah,
how that worked out time wise, because it was only a couple years ago, but I don't know.
yeah. Well, okay, so that brings up another point too. So obviously the MCU, it's like ahead of us in time, right?
Yeah.
And I was having to like do some research to be like, okay, well, when does this show take place? Like, what year are we up to right now? And so they say that it takes place during the events of Shang-Chi. And then I looked up Shang-Chi and it said that that's 2024. So, like, after the blip, they say 5 years later. And, it's a couple of years, it's at least 2 years ahead of us. If we are going with the idea of World War Hulk and him having a son, then I mean the son would be maybe at least 5 years old then, right? Or
Well, yeah,
yeah,
you got to think too that I don't remember how they aged him in the comic, because
yeah,
he's a pretty much full. I mean, he's at least a high level teens, if not older.
yeah.
There's got to be something. I mean, I don't know if they'll do time travel, or I have no idea what they can do. Quantum
Well,
realm stuff, space stuff. Maybe he's half some alien that ages fast. I don't know.
right.
Could
They'll
be
do the
any
go ahead.
combination of stuff.
Yeah, they'll do the invincible thing, and it'll be like he's half this other race, and that race, ages fast.
Yeah.
You know.
There you go.
But with the MCU timeline, right? Like, because there's a line in the show where he says, "I've been doing this for like 15 years. I've been dealing with this problem for 15 years." And if you look at that Edward Norton Hulk movie, that came out in 2008, and that's like what 14 years ago, then, right?
See, I was confused by that because I thought he said I've been dealing with this for 10 years, but his plan to train She-Hulk was going to be 15 years. So I was a little confused by that, but I could be wrong about that.
Yeah, maybe I'm off. I thought he said that he's been dealing with it for 15 years, and then he did say 10 years about something else too.
But
like
15 years sounds more right to me, I think.
Yeah. And see, I kind of like that 15-year thing because, like, I know that in the comics, they always kind of keep it like that the MCU or the Marvel universe is just like essentially like 10 years, give or take. I like that, and it's just kind of cool to think that, like, this stuff has been going on. I mean, the first Iron Man movie came out in 2008, and now they're essentially in 2024. So, the world has definitely changed. It's definitely, like, evolved.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because like they had the blip and then we had COVID and it's like, they don't cross over, but yeah. So, well, okay. Tell me what you liked about this show then. Okay.
So that's the thing is I really did enjoy the show. I thought I laughed at most of the things. I really thought Tatiana Maslany was great. I did think the CGI looked pretty decent. But I don't know how to review comedic things. Like, I don't know how you say, that joke was funny or something like that. Like, I don't know how to critically analyze this. I mean, I could sum up this episode of the show, with plot wise in like 2 or 3 lines, blood transfusion or whatever happens. She becomes Hulk. She trains to be Hulk trains her. That's it.
Well, the thing is that like you don't really see live reactions or live reviews of comedy shows, right? It's pretty much always like sci-fi, horror, fantasy, whatever, mystery. Yeah, it's hard to review comedy because it's like, do the jokes land? And I think that is a way to judge if a movie is a successful comedy or not. Like, they don't really make comedies anymore. They just kind of like really infuse action movies and superhero movies with comedy. And but I mean, I could tell when something fails, and I feel like for me, a lot of the jokes fell flat. I actually did like that post-credit joke where she's like, "Steve Rogers fucks" or whatever. Like, I thought that was funny. And I did like that one joke where she's like, constant fear and anger. That's like a woman's default state or whatever she said. Like, I thought that was funny too. And I like their bar, and they were kind of gross with their like just drinking and burping so much when we're at Bruce's bar.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
It's funny because like one of the main things that people have criticized the show was about the CGI, which you said you thought was good. A lot of people compared it to Shrek. The commercial for the show popped on, and my wife and my daughter saw it, and they were like, "Hey, look, they look like Shrek," So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I will say it is a little weird. I think I don't know if it's because they're reusing something they've already used in the movie, but I think Hulk, it does look a little better than She-Hulk.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I don't know why. It's not like a huge difference to me, but maybe slightly.
Yeah,
And I think it's just the facial animations really is what gets me.
yeah,
The arms, the muscles, and all that. I think that works fine.
yeah.
Fairly even. But something about the face looks a little better with Bruce for some reason.
You know what it is? It's his eyes. Mark Ruffalo's eyes as the Hulk. They're kind of like little beady eyes, and I feel like you can see the white better. When it's Tatiana Maslany, it's kind of like the eyes, they all kind of blend together. It seems like just kind of like one color.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? It's definitely her eyes versus his eyes. There's something going on there that's different. I don't know, but it's not that much of a issue to where it makes me dislike the show. And you know, honestly, I like her. She's definitely charming. I just I just kind of told you my main issues with the show. Basically, I don't like the idea of like, oh well, she's just like way better than Hulk. Like I was thinking that she could feel super confident and be like, "Oh, I'm so much better than Hulk." But then a good like twist then would be that when she goes back to the courtroom, then she like fucks up. You know, like maybe she loses her temper in the courtroom and starts smashing things, or like she just has a problem. Like dramatically, you want to see a character that's so like, "I'm so awesome. Look how confident I am." You want to see them, have a comeuppance, and then they have to kind of recover from it. But in this last scene, Titania is the woman that attacks, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Titania, whatever. I don't know.
Yeah. So she comes in and just like She-Hulk lays her out, and it's like not a big problem. And she puts on her shoes. I thought that was a cool little like moment, the way that it was shot. But yeah. I wanted to see her fail, and then like the to be continued was going to be like, oh shit, I guess I'm not as good as I thought I was. Let me work on that.
Yeah, I think that the show is going to be more lawyery, dramedy kind of thing.
Yeah,
I think we're just trying to fast forward through it.
Okay,
no problem. I have no problem with. She doesn't want to be a superhero. She's not trained to be a superhero or anything like that. I don't mind that she got this quickly. It doesn't bother me. I don't know. I don't know if I want to watch 9 episodes of an origin, really. I guess like that.
Yes.
They clearly have something else in mind, some other plot or overarching story that we haven't really gotten to yet. And I'd rather reserve judgment until we see more.
Okay. Look, I mean, that's a good point. I mean, they keep comparing this show to Ally McBeal, and they're saying that like, it's not necessarily like a superhero show. It's like Ally McBeal. The two shows that I saw them compare, when the showrunner, I gotta look at her name one more time. Her name is Jessica Gao. When she pitched this show, it's kind of interesting too. I just want to kind of tell this to our audience. I thought this was real interesting. But she pitched Shang-Chi to the people at Marvel, and she pitched a Black Widow movie. And her Black Widow movie was essentially like a She-Hulk movie, but just like Black Widow was in it. And when she finally eventually pitched this show, she compared it to 2 other shows, Better Call Saul, which is about a lawyer, right? And then Fleabag, which has a main character who's a woman who breaks the fourth wall all the time, right? And I love both of those fucking shows so much. Oh, there's my wife from the Peanut Gallery. She's like, you're trying to tell me She-Hulk's like that? It's not as good as that, okay, baby?
Yeah. I don't have the context, unfortunately. I have not watched Better Call Saul. I never finished Breaking Bad either. And I've never seen Fleabag. I actually don't even know what it's about, to be honest.
It's really good. I mean, it's this British show and whatever. But like, there's one thing I wanted to address that you said that I really liked. I did like the fact that she's like, I don't want to be a superhero. I just want to have my regular life. I enjoy being a lawyer. I don't want to like, and I did like that whole conflict there where Bruce is like, hey, you are a superhero now. You have this power. You have to be a superhero. And she's like, I don't want that. I just want to have my life. That's a great little dynamic to riff on in that first episode.
Yeah, and I think it will come into play about her taking on somewhat of a more heroic role as the show goes on.
Yeah. Right, exactly. Dan Slott, who wrote like so much Spider-Man, and I'm reading his Fantastic Four comics right now. When he took over She-Hulk, the comic, he wanted it to be like, okay, we're just going to see what it's like for courtroom drama with superheroes. We're going to see what when people have superpowers. What does that look like when they go to court? And I think that's what the show is going to be.
Yeah.
Do you think that is the last we're going to see of Mark Ruffalo in the show?
I think we've probably seen the most of it, of what he'll be in the show. I wouldn't rule out him showing up again, but I think it won't be that much of an episode.
Yeah, I feel the exact same way. Yeah. So, did you have anything else to say about She-Hulk, Attorney at Law?
No, I'm just looking forward to it. I guess that's all.
Yeah, I love the title, by the way. A normal amount of rage.
Yes, good title.
That's great. All right. Well, I don't have a lot of rage about Paper Girls. As a matter of fact, I'm kind of sad that it's done. I've thoroughly enjoyed that show. What about you?
Yeah, I really liked it a lot too. I like it so much that I actually reread the entire comic series today.
Oh, thank God. Okay, good. Thank God.
Today, so and I'm in the middle of doing work around the house and stuff. I read a bunch of comics.
Perfect. So then you can correct anything I say about the comic, and you can reference things in the comic. Perfect.
Yes.
Just like when we watched The Boys, and you read The Boys comic.
Yes. Well, but this is super fresh in my mind. It's only 30 issues, so it's a lot more condensed. So hopefully I'll remember more and be more accurate.
All right, perfect. Okay, so let's jump into episode 5 then, which is entitled A New Period. And here we are, two middle-aged men talking about 12-year-old girls and their periods. It's come to this,
yes.
Right?
We've had a lot of girl power lately.
Yes.
Marvel, we were doing She-Hulk, we're doing Paper Girls. And yeah, it makes sense. Had you told me that this was going to happen before we reviewed any of those shows, I'm like, oh, maybe we shouldn't do this. But you know what? We're here, and I think we can do this good.
So what I'm going to say about that directly is Ms. Marvel, She-Hulk, this show, this scene with the girls where Erin has her first period and then Mac has to go steal some pads or tampons. She kind of steals both from the convenience store. That was so much more of an authentic scene of women interacting with each other and just dealing with real life issues. I thought that was probably one of the best scenes I've seen in any of these comic book shows in the past year.
Yeah, I think this was probably the standout scene of the entire series, to be perfectly honest.
Holy shit! Wow.
Yeah, the dialogue was fantastic. It was, it was meaningful. It was funny. They hit it out of the park with that, and that's not something that really came from the comic.
That's right.
Someone does have their period in the comic, but it wasn't Erin, it was KJ, and it's kind of minor. It's just kind of it happened, and they just mention it once. It wasn't a whole scene or anything like that. It takes place in a totally different setting than where the girls are currently in the show. So there wasn't a store around at the time. I'll just leave it at that for now.
Yeah.
But I feel like what this show is doing is capitalizing on the human element, which I think was what we mentioned last time, and I think what most adaptations really do. They take the human elements of it, the interpersonal relationship, the personal drama, and that's how they sell the show. And and then they'll inject whatever weirdness they can from the source material. The book is a lot weirder than the show.
Yep.
I like both a lot. I really do.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be lying if I didn't miss some of the weirder stuff that I feel like they've kind of skipped over, and I hope they don't completely. I don't want. We'll get to this later, but there's one major plot point that I'm wondering if they're going to completely eliminate.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And that revolves around. There's a point where they're in BC, 11,000 BC or something like that.
Right.
I'm really curious if they're going to do that and show the two characters there, who Wari and Japo, and knowing that they're pretty central to the plot. I'm wondering if they're not going to show them.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess it depends on how successful this show is. If they're going to have a budget for this show, if it's going to continue on. We'll see. I have those same kind of thoughts myself too. There was one last thing I wanted to say about the whole period thing on this show is that pretty much any time the period is mentioned on like a show or a movie, especially if it's like a genre thing, it's always a scene where there's like a male authoritative figure and a female character, and she has to like get past him or get into some area or something, and she's like, I have a woman problem, and the guy always goes like acts all awkward and lets her by. And that's that kind of low-hanging fruit kind of stuff that I was talking about with She-Hulk, where it's just like, oh, this again, I've seen this. Like, okay, they don't do anything like that. That's not even an issue in the show at all. It's like they just have to deal with the practical stuff of we need to get these items, or we don't even know how to use these items, and just their interaction, their dialogue is trying to figure it out. I thought it was great.
Yeah, it was. It seemed very authentic. Obviously, we don't have that experience personally, but it seems authentic, and it just felt very real.
Yes.
Like if 4 12-year-old girls were in that situation, that's very possibly how it might go.
Yes. Wait till we cover a show where they're talking about guys having to get their prostates checked. We will be all over that shit.
Oh, there's a fantastic Letterkenny episode about that.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, there you go.
Oh, but there's a whole episode dedicated to that, and it is amazing.
See, that's what our life is, though. We have our common bond with our comics, and then you always mention this fucking Letterkenny show, and then I mention all my weird shit, and we're both just like, hey, that sounds good, I guess. I don't know,
Yeah. Oh, it's everybody. There's too many shows out there. Everybody can't watch all the same shows. Totally get it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, so what channel?
Show trade. Maybe we'll do that. I'll watch something you say. You watch something I say.
Okay, I like that. So what is that? Is that on Hulu? What is that on?
It's on Hulu. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Coming up, because I kind of want to watch Sandman and maybe even throw Sandman in with the She-Hulk stuff. I don't know. We'll figure that out off camera. Yeah. But besides Sandman, I also want to watch that show, The Rehearsal, that's on HBO Max, and then I want to watch the fucking what's it called, The Bear. Have you heard of either of those?
I've seen The Bear's on Hulu too. I keep seeing commercials for it. Yeah.
But going back to Paper Girls, though, so that first episode has a very dramatic shift, right? There's like 2 deaths like right away before the opening credits, I think, and that guy Larry is killed by a mech, and then Erin is killed by a mech. Adult Erin, she like sacrifices herself and blows up. So you just said you read the comic. That guy Larry isn't in the comic, right?
No. So what I'm pretty sure that Larry seems to be kind of like the stand-in for Charlotte, the comic artist. I can't remember her last name already. I forgot. And I think his mom visually looks like that character.
Okay.
So I it's clear to me that that's kind of what they were going for there.
Okay.
And she doesn't die. I think she gets what is the word? Ablution.
Yeah.
I think that just happens to her. I'm not sure if she dies or not, but after her scenes are done, you don't see her again in the comic.
Okay.
Erin does not die.
That's what I thought.
And it's funny too, because like Erin actually has like a really good relationship with her sister as an adult. So I'm very curious as to why they took that route. Maybe it was to kind of capitalize on the, young Erin is seeing herself as older and just not being where she wanted to or where she thought she'd be. That's definitely a big thing in this show here. We obviously see Tiff go through that too in the so far. But in the comic, they really only do meet adult Erin and then like a slightly 20-something Tiff. They can't meet another Mac probably.
Right.
There is briefly an older KJ, but it's towards the end and doesn't have very many lines. It's actually a clone, believe it or not. It's not even the real one. There's clones in this, and I'm sure they're going to do that too because that's kind of a big part of it.
Yeah.
But all the stuff that they're basically doing, going to their houses and the whole scene with the party, not stuff from the comics. The very first episode where they're delivering the papers, that's pretty page for page, shot for shot, almost, honestly.
Yeah.
Beyond that, they're leaning into the relationships. They're leaning into that shock of seeing yourself in what you're like in the future.
Yeah.
I don't think is it's definitely a part of the comic, but it's not as relevant as the show makes it.
Yes. But you know what? Honestly, I actually really love that. And I think that, like, if you were going to adapt this into a TV show, that's the way to go. I mean, I love that. Go ahead.
I agree with that, but I actually always think of I always think of that almost as a negative sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I do love the show, but I like weird stuff, and I always think of to pare it down. I think of Transformers, the live action Transformers movies.
Okay.
What I want to see in those movies is I just want to see robots. I don't
Right.
But what sold those movies to executives and people, whatever, are the human parts of it. I don't care about that, and that's really what this is. Is that them going for the more mundane stuff is having humans in Transformers movies. So I don't think of it like that. I don't think it's as extreme, really. Here, I do think it's they're hitting these points very hard and very well, I think. But what drew me to this comic was other than the creative team was that it's a weird fucking Image comic. You know, I love these weird sci-fi things, and this is less sci-fi than a lot less sci-fi than the comic.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good point. Like, Brian K. Vaughan, and we said this in the last episode, Brian K. Vaughan is very unique. And one of the things that makes him unique, besides his like really amazing last page cliffhangers, is he likes to throw random weird stuff at us very abruptly. Like, Grant Morrison is, another bald comic book guy or person, right? And Grant Morrison throws weird shit at us all the time too. However, Brian K. Vaughan kind of always does it like a punch in your face right away. Like, it's usually like the opening page is like a really fucking weird thing, and then you kind of go through the comic. Grant Morrison is just like everything's fucking weird from the first page to the last page, Yes. But with Brian K. Vaughan, he hits you with that weird shit right away, right in the first page, and then he like normalizes it to where even though there's weird stuff, it's always like just everyday life. And that's what Saga really is, right? And that's what this kind of is too. But I know exactly what you're saying with the weirdness. Like, that's his shtick.
I have to really compliment your analogy there, or your description of that. That fucking nails like every one comic I've ever read, like, to a T.
Yeah.
I never really thought of that, but that is such a perfect description.
Thank you so much. Yeah. I'm a huge fan of his work. He's like, pretty much, if he has something out, it's like, oh, I'm going to enjoy this. Pretty much, right?
I also have to second the cliffhangers in the comic are nuts.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure too that they did this. They took a little hiatus between each arc, just like much like Saga. I don't think it was as long, but something like that. So you read a cliffhanger at the end of the 5-issue arc, and you were like, I got to wait 2-3 months for the next issue.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's kind of a detriment for the comic too. I think is that those gaps. This was 30 issues across from 2016 to 2019.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that if that's the case, they couldn't have been that many months off. There's 36 months, 30 issues, so only 6 months off, I guess, or give or take. Well, I guess my point was that this is a dense story with a lot of things to keep track of, and it's hard to follow if you're reading this month to month, I think. But reading it all together, it's a lot easier to keep everything together. It's a lot more enjoyable, I think. And I just contradict myself with the whole binging versus weekly shows argument that I always side on.
Right, but see, I think it's all about format, right? Because I think that a comic book ultimately could be just like a graphic novel that's split into issues, right? Yeah. Whereas like a TV show, there is that padding that a lot of these shows do. And you compared this to Transformers before with the idea of like focusing on the humans, where it's like you're there for the robots. I think that the kind of the most notorious thing I always see is like CW stuff, right? Where they'll put in that one superhero element that you're there for. You're like, oh, there's Doomsday, or like, oh, it's Christ on Infinite Earths. But then there's like so much just like
Doomsday wants a girlfriend.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's all this like,
which is literally what Smallville did.
Oh my God. Yeah. And there's just episode after episode of all this relationship stuff. The difference between this and that kind of show is that it's just like, it almost could be its own thing. And it's just about girls from the past meeting their future selves. And that's it. And none of this other weird time warp shit. Right. And I think that like this one episode, I think it's not that same episode. It's a different one. Oh no, it is that episode. It's the one where they go to see KJ's family and she meets her future self. I mean, she doesn't meet her. She meets her future self's girlfriend, Lauren, right? That was so fucking great too, because Lauren describes like Stanley Kubrick movies and like the experience of going to see them. And she explains like meeting KJ, the adult KJ. And then you have this thing where 12-year-old KJ eventually has the experience that adult KJ has. And it's so interesting to see like these young girls having these like moments that they're supposed to have later in life, but they're having them early because of the circumstances. And I think that's a very unique thing. Like I don't really think I've seen that happen in many movies.
This is something that I felt that so in the comic, how KJ experiences that she thinks she's a lesbian is she gets like a flash of like information of the future. She gets a couple little just flashes of images that things are going to happen soon. And one of them is her and Mac kissing on a rooftop. I think the way the show handled it is a lot more interesting and a lot more relatable.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of love that she was about to ask when they actually saw the movie, after they saw the movie, she's basically going to ask, like, when did you know you were lesbian? And then she turns into, when did you know you were a film critic? And then they kind of use Kubrick movies as a analogy for coming out. And I thought that worked really, really well.
Yeah.
And that was a really great scene that was not really present in the comics.
Yes.
Which is an example of again, playing up that human element, the interpersonal relationships, the feelings and emotions of these characters. But at the same time, I want my weird sci-fi shit.
Well, if they don't do that to Saga, then I think we're okay. But
yeah, I think I said when we were reviewing Obi-Wan, there was some weird squid face guy or something like that. I'm like, there was a guy in Saga like that. You could do it, but I'm kind of nervous on like they have to keep Saga weird. They have to.
Oh yeah.
Like, it needs to be. They can't humanize it that much. I mean, there's a lot of humanization in that. Obviously, it's just this young girl's feelings about things and growing up in a weird fucking sci-fi world.
Right.
But there's so much weird fucking shit in that, and they need to stick to that.
Yes. As long as they have, robot princes with television heads, and there is like gay porn on the television screen ejaculating, that'll be great for Amazon Prime or whatever it's going to take fucking Saga.
Hey, I mean, what they got away with, stuff where they got away with the boys, I think they might be able to pull it off.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. So I mean, we'll see. That I'm looking forward to that whenever that comes out. But I was gonna say, going back to the girls themselves, the paper girls. We've talked about Tiff a bit. I mean, not Tiff. We talked about KJ and we talked about Aaron. I think that Tiff, the actress that plays Tiff, I think she actually gives the best performance, in my opinion. Like I like her performance the best.
Young Tiff or middle or teenage or 20-something Tiff.
12-year-old.
I know they were both fantastic, actually, but
yeah, 12-year-old Tiff for me.
Yeah. She has this kind of eager go-getter attitude. Her whole thing is that she wants to go to MIT. You kind of see that a little bit in the first episodes where she's talking about her walkie-talkies and all that, how proud of them she is, and all that. And then again, they really play into meeting her future self and just not being where she thought or wanted to be, and not understanding that sometimes things you expect don't really feel like you expect them to,
Yeah.
And again, like a lot of the things that she a lot of the bombs they drop on young Tiff in here are things that her character just knows in the comics. Like she casually mentions that she knows she's adopted. Like there was not a surprise or anything like that. There is a surprise with her college choice thing. So I think like middle age, 20 something Tiff. I don't want to say middle age because middle age is like 30. She's like 20 something. 20 something Tiff doesn't go to MIT. She goes to like some school in New York instead, and it's for like business and the whole thing from the earlier episodes where she finds that in 2019 she worked at something called the Quilkin Institute.
Yeah,
that is not something from the comics. That is something different, and I think that's something that plays into why I think they're gonna potentially erase the whole prehistoric storyline portion of the comic and rewrite it there, because in the past, in addition to the characters of Wari and Japo, there's they meet the scientist who invents time travel, whose name is Dr. Is it Dr. Quanta Bronstein? Something like that.
Yeah.
So they're implying that Tiff is going to invent time travel based on the events of this show, where in the comic that is not something she does. But both young Tiff and 20-something Tiff both kind of geek out that a woman created time travel. So that kind of keeps in line with what the show is doing.
Okay. Oh man, you gave me such a refresher there because I completely forgot about that woman time traveler that goes back. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I agree with you. I think that like they're setting it up so that it's like she invents time travel, and it's like maybe like a little loop or whatever that is created. So yeah, wow. There's so much I forgot about the comic. You just kind of gave me like a big refresher.
There's a lot I forgot too. Like this just blown through today. I remembered a lot of the earlier stuff, but the later stuff where it gets a lot more confusing, I was a lot fuzzier on. So and so far it's weird that they're kind of like taking stuff from like the third and fourth arcs already.
Yeah.
That's when they run into Tiff actually. In the third storyline, and the second storyline is the whole prehistoric portion.
Well, we should talk about like the stuff that actually is weird. That they do have that kind of that war with the there's the Old Watch in this show, and then the Resistance guys. Jason Mantzoukas, he's grandfather.
Yeah,
I know you are a big fan of How Did This Get Made?
Love How Did This Get Made? Yes, I still think this is inspired casting. He absolutely is grandfather. Like I wouldn't be surprised if they said, let's make this guy look like Mantzoukas. Although maybe at the time, he would have been looking like that already, sort of with the more grayish hair. I think it's very, very fitting to have him there. His shirt game is exactly on point with what the comic is. He just wears old music shirts all the time. Often hip hop shirts. Great casting there. I want to correct something we mentioned the last time too. So the Prioris is a character in the comic, but she's in a very, very short amount of time.
Okay,
she does seem to be rather important, but she's maybe in 2 or 3 issues, and she dies.
Okay,
she actually dies in a mech battle against the Heck and Naldo and their third compatriot, who I guess they didn't put it in the show.
Okay.
So it's interesting that they had her so prominent in the show, being how little she was actually in the comic. And the guy that does KJ kill the guy who kills the guy?
KJ, that hockey stick.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. So that guy's name is Alistair, and he is in the comic. He's basically is only in it for that and at another point, but kind of equal lengths of their appearances in the comic.
Okay. Well, I kind of had that idea that Prioris wasn't that like big a deal in the comic. It just it was hard to remember her.
Yeah. No, I think we said that they gender bent someone, but essentially no. Like Alistair is pretty on point. I don't know that they named him in the show that or not, but that's pretty much how much he was in it. He does come back later because it's in a scene from something that hasn't happened yet. But Prioris is barely in it, and is more of a character that kind of comes up with grandfather and is kind of like a one of his closest confidants, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what I didn't like about Prioris in the last episode, in episode 8, is that she seems like she's like totally devoted to the cause for the whole series. This ruthless kind of tracker devoted to the cause, and then at the very end, it's like, oh, she actually hates the cause and she helps the girls escape. And it's like you were trying to capture them the whole show, and now you're gonna let them escape.
I think what they did there is they combined. Early on, there's a clone of Eren that comes that finds them in like the abandoned mall, and there is a scene where they find KJ's field hockey stick, and it says, "Don't trust other Eren," and you're kind of wondering what side that character is actually on, and you do find out more later. But I think they kind of combined that into Prioris.
Okay.
And that's why they had her turn, or it kind of helped them.
Yeah. Sort of. Well, like the way that she went out, I thought was pretty cool. Like, I mean, the fact that like they used those like kind of bugs to heal her up, and then Jason Mantzoukas turned them off, and then she bled out. I thought that was really that's sort of a unique kill, I thought.
Yeah, it was definitely dramatic. You can tell that it was hard for him to do that too.
Yeah, right.
They were close, at least.
Yeah. So, is there any talk of a season 2 so far?
Haven't heard anything yet. I don't know how. I think Amazon tends to announce renewals like a couple weeks after the episodes drop.
Okay.
So hopefully we'll hear something in the next week or two, maybe.
Yeah. It's funny because it just did come out recently, but it's that thing where they just dump it all in one shot. So it feels like it was like way long ago, but I think it was only like 2 weeks ago, right? That it came out.
Yeah. What worries me though is that when I was looking for the episodes to watch this morning, I finished the last 2 this morning.
Yeah.
It's kind of buried in there, like your little carousel.
Yeah.
If you go to the originals, like it's pretty deep in there. I didn't see any banners for it. You still see banners for the boys. So I'm wondering. I'm just wondering if people watched it or not. I didn't really see much talk about it.
Yeah.
But I really think it's a really well cast, well written show.
Yeah.
And I think I hope more people give it a chance. I really do hope we get a season 2 because we got a decent cliffhanger. And, and we don't even know where 2 of the characters ended up.
Yeah.
And the 2 we do follow end up somewhere that they didn't end up in the comic.
Right. I was thinking that too. Yeah. They end up in like the 60s, right?
It's the 70s because I think with the David Bowie song and the movie is The Longest Yard. It's like 74 or 75 or something like that.
Oh, okay. I couldn't remember which Bowie song it was either.
I actually had, I guess I had closed captioning on. I don't know why. So it said David Bowie's Golden Years plays.
Oh, Golden Years. Okay. I love Golden Years. I couldn't remember which song it was from the last time I watched it. And then it's like, yeah, that's a good one. I really, really dug the show. I would love to do a ranking with you, not tonight, but like, we always rank our MCU movies. It'd be cool to just rank all the shows that we've covered. And I'd like to see like where this falls. Right? Yeah, we've covered. We've covered at least 8 Marvel shows. Young Justice. We covered this, The Boys, tons of shit. Would just like to see where this would fit into that ranking. But for me, this show would be pretty high in our ranking.
Yes. I would agree with that. Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe one think about that.
Yeah, maybe when we finish She-Hulk, we could do like a ranking of what we've watched so far. Yeah,
and you mentioned Young Justice, and I have to say, I keep reading that they're like there are no plans for season 5, and I'm just like so bummed.
Me too.
And I just bought the tie-in comic, which does actually take place after the end of Phantoms. So I haven't read it yet, but I'm looking forward to reading it.
Yeah, I feel like that's probably what's just going to end up happening is that they're just going to do like some kind of comic to finish the series off.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Yeah, pretty lame. Yeah, all that Warner Brothers shit. That's like we could do a whole episode on just the Warner Brothers shit.
Yeah, well, I mean, apparently they're saying that Peacemaker's good for season 2.
Nice.
They the Green Lantern show is still a go, and possibly even Colin Farrell's Penguin show is still green.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I also read that a lot of people are speculating that they may actually allow Titans and Doom Patrol to air their 4th seasons and then can them after that. So
okay.
I hope that happens.
Yeah.
I really don't want more repeats of Batgirl.
No.
I really don't like it. And I really just I hope we get to see this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I love me some Doom Patrol. And if they have filmed it, I would love to finish it off, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Well, that brings our discussion to a close for tonight. Brian and I will be back next week with She-Hulk, maybe a little Sandman. I don't know. We'll talk about it. But we're definitely going to do She-Hulk episode 2 next week. We're going up to Andor, which is coming out in September. And so we got to get our Disney Plus fix in there. I recently recorded a podcast episode with Mike Bongiorno on his show, Pop Culture Man Children, where I talked about Masters of the Universe Revelation. Brian and I covered that whole show on here. If you guys want to check that out on here. But you can always go check out Pop Culture Man Children, because I think that episode came out really well. You can check that out. On the Lasercast, there's interviews with horror writers that we've been doing. Danny and I are going to be covering this movie Glorious this weekend if you guys watch movies on Shudder. But that is pretty much it. And then, of course, like Brian mentioned at the very beginning, we talked about Prey. I bet you guys like that movie. You can check out our review of Prey on the Lasercast too. But if you have not liked and subscribed, please do. And we want to know what you guys thought about She-Hulk too. So did you like it? Did you not? Do you agree with me? Do you agree with Brian? So anyway, we will talk to you guys next Thursday night for She-Hulk episode 2.